Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for June 10th, 2019. This meeting happens normally at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Mondays, for the most part, unless there are U.S. holidays, in which case we may move or skip the meeting entirely. I am Katney. I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython development is sponsored by Adafruit, so please support them by visiting adafruit.com and checking out what all the things that we have that work with CircuitPython. This meeting happens every week. We get together to find out what's going on with everyone, to discuss what everyone's been up to. The meeting is in 5 parts. We start with community news, where we discuss things that are going on in the community surrounding Python and CircuitPython. Then we do the state of CircuitPython and the libraries, which is a statistical overview of the project, where we'll talk about the core and then we'll talk about the libraries. Then we do hug reports, which is an opportunity to call people out for good things that they've done, because that doesn't happen enough. And then we do status updates, which is a chance for everyone to take a few minutes and talk about what they've been doing over the last week since the last meeting, and talk about what they'll be doing over the next week until the next meeting. And then lastly, we have what we lovingly call In the Weeds, which is an opportunity for more long-form discussion, stuff that doesn't really fit into status updates, but that people want to talk about. And just, like I said, longer form discussion. Just so you know, this meeting is recorded. We record the Discord chat and also the audio. We make that available on YouTube and also on many podcast services. If we are missing from your favorite podcast service, please let us know. We are currently in the CircuitPython audio chat, and that's where this meeting is held. And then those who do not have microphones are able to type into the CircuitPython Discord channel. We are also available all week in the CircuitPython Discord channel. So if you miss this meeting and you are interested in still getting in touch with us, come and say hi. We're always around. So with that, we will move on to community news. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Phil.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Some news. First, since we all hang out on Discord, they've added a new feature, and you may have noticed these little pink jewels next to some of our names. Well, those are server boosts, and I clicked a button and it says, "Great, you boosted the server." We have 4. If we get to 10 of them, though, we get more emojis, which is good. 256K audio, a server banner, it's a little graphic, and then 50 megabyte uploads for all of us. So I don't remember how I got the boost to begin with, but then I give it to our server. So if there's any of you out there that have boosting abilities, boost a server, and then we'll get some of these goodies. We're up to level 1, and then we'll be up to level 2. Next up, we have a new newsletter. This is Adafruit IO Monthly. Brent's been doing a really good job on it. You'll see this on our website, and we link to it in the CircuitPython Python on Hardware newsletter. But check it out, especially if you're doing IoT things. There's a lot of CircuitPython and IoT in there. It's a good way. There's so much stuff going on with CircuitPython. It's good timing, because if you mostly focus on IoT stuff, well, now you've got an IoT newsletter that'll have a lot of CircuitPython things in it. Reminder, 8/8 is CircuitPython Day. Folks are already planning some events around the world. It's August 8th, which is a Thursday, and we got a request, is it okay if it's Friday or Saturday, Sunday? Of course. We just had to pick a snake-like day that was pretty close to no conflicts with any other events or things. So that's totally okay. So we'll have some more posts about that. And if you're thinking about doing some type of event or meetup, or even if you want to do something online, let us know, and we'll be coordinating before August 8th. And then last up, because we get asked in Discord quite a bit, we're almost out of Ada boxes. We have only, I think, 50 openings left out of the thousands that we do. So I'm about to let everybody know that this is it. It's definitely CircuitPython themed. That's all we can kind of say. But if you wanted to get in on that, this is the last time before it'll probably be gone before the next quarter. And that is the community news.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the state of CircuitPython and libraries. So overall, we had 18 pull requests merged from 15 authors. There are a number of names here that I don't believe I've seen before. N. Tavish, Bao Repo, GR Dami J, Elvis EPX, Jason Shelton. It's always great to see new names. So thank you very much for joining us and contributing. We had 6 reviewers. Thank you to everyone who reviews. Again, reviewing is an amazing way to get started with CircuitPython. It's an integral part of the contribution process, and it's something that you can do even if you don't know code. There's plenty of stuff available to review that involves just looking at syntax and or typos and that sort of thing, because we make plenty, so any kind of help is appreciated. We had 9 closed issues by 8 people and 9 opened by 7 people, so we are net neutral there, but it's good that so many people were involved in opening and closing those issues. Overall, we now have 4.0 stable, 4.0.1 stable out the door, which is giving us an opportunity to start moving forward with where we're going to go with 4.1 and or 5.0. We're moving back towards adding more Bluetooth support, as well as gaming support, which means improving display stuff, and just overall, like, we were able to shift focus now that we've bug hunted everything. And so far, it's been very stable. We haven't heard a whole lot. In terms of the libraries, we're still seeing a lot of new people and new contributions, which is amazing. Please continue to do that. We love pull requests, and feel free to put them in early and often. Just because it's not ready to go doesn't mean you can't put in a PR if you want feedback. It's an excellent way to get feedback early on and make sure that you're on the right track. So just let us know if you ever need help with that. And that's where we're at with the overall CircuitPython. And with that, I will turn it over to Scott for the core.
Hello. All right. So for the core, we had 7 pull requests merged from Entavish and myself, Bao Repo, Elvis EPX, J Reese, and C47D. From 2 reviewers, myself and Summersoft. So thank you to everybody there. We have 7 open pull requests, which are listed in the notes. We'll not read those off. Issues-wise, we had 3 closed issues by 3 people and 4 open by 3 people. So we're net 1 for a total of 178 open issues. So about right. In terms of milestones, we have 2 open bug fix issues, and we have 40 open 4x issues, so we've got a lot there. Then we also have 7 issues not assigned a milestone, so I'll probably get to that today as I go through email to get everything caught up. Downloads-wise, we have 401 and 40 RC3, which is our old unstables. Don't recommend people use that. 401 now has a total of 2,934 downloads, so lots of folks are trying that out, which is great. Download stats by language, I'll just read these off because I normally don't, but so out of the 2,934 total, 2,668 of those were English, 7 were Indonesian, 55 were German, 38 were Pirate, 56 Spanish, 2 Tagalog, 71 French, 8 Italian, 10 Polish, 13 Portuguese, and 6 Chinese Pinyin. Just to give folks an idea of how that goes. And yeah, that's it for the core.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
So next up, we will talk about the libraries. So we had 11 pull requests merged from Jardium J, TG Techie, Anecdata, Sedacious, Cater Newson, Jason Shelton, Brent RU, and myself. And 5 reviewers, Maker Melissa, Scott, myself, Lady Ada, and Brent. We currently have 29 open pull requests, which is finally down a little bit, so that's good. Thank you to quite a few people who have been going through those PRs and making sure that everything that's possible to close and or look at and or review is getting done. I want to give a special shout out to D. Harada, who has been putting in a lot of effort to help us out, both with his own PRs and with closing PRs that should have been closed, closing issues that should have been closed. We added him a couple weeks ago to the CircuitPython librarian's role on GitHub, and he has hit the ground sprinting. So it's been really amazing to see. We had 6 issues closed by 6 people and 5 open by 4 people, leaving us with 110 open issues. Those issues are all available by library at the circuitpython.org/libraries/contributing link. That is in the notes, and I've also posted it into the chat. Right now, the updates are still being done manually, so we will eventually automate that. We're slowly running through the issues to get to where we need to be to automate that. So that's where we are with that, and we've added something new to the library section, which is the library updates in the past 7 days. This was admittedly a selfish addition for me because it will make updating the newsletter much faster, but it does give us an option to, at least the list this week is short, so I can read it off quickly. We now have a new library for the DS3502 for CircuitPython. And then we updated the MCP 230XX library, the ADS1X15 library, the Adafruit CircuitPython Circuit Playground library, and the ESP32 SPI library have all been updated. So thank you to everybody who was, and the PyPortal one as well. So thank you to everyone who was involved in all of the updates. Next up is Hug Reports. So Hug Reports is an opportunity to call people out for doing something good. It's sort of our counter to bug reports. We took it from the internal Adafruit meeting where they go through and anybody can call somebody out for something good. So we decided to adopt that as well. It will be done in a round robin style. I will start for an example, and then we will move through the list alphabetically. If you're lurking, I will skip over you. If you are mic or if you are text only, you can type it into the chat and I will read it off, or you can type it into the notes. And for those of you listening who are not attending, you can always check out the notes document. We link it into the CircuitPython channel before the meeting, and you can put in your notes and I will read them off as we get to you. So I will get started. First and foremost, I want to thank Sedacious for helping me test the alert pin on the MCP 9600 and bearing with me through my first time using an oscilloscope. I wasn't sure whether the code was going to work, and he suggested actually inverting the polarity on the pin instead of trying to get the threshold code to work, since that was still an unknown variable. And I was able to do that and verify that at least the hardware worked. I want to thank Roy for helping me break down an issue with the MCP 9600 to being a fundamental issue with I2C versus a failure in the driver, which of course is what I assumed, and went in circles with that for about a week before Roy helped me strip down the code and figure out that it's not at all an issue with the library, though we have eventually found out there were further issues, which I will discuss later. To Lady Ada for figuring out I was trying to reference 16 bits of a 24-bit register, but it doesn't matter because in the end, clock stretching. So to Summersoft for continuing to fight the good fight with automating the updates for circuitpython.org/libraries. It's one of those things where we keep making updates to it and it sort of cascade fails, where we figure out one problem and then the next one pops up. They just don't want to pop up all at the same time. And then to Dan, this is a late addition, for finding the errata for the MCP 9600 chip and figuring out that it's an issue with the chip. And I'm shaking my fists. So that is my Hug Reports. Next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay. First of all, give two cells for the presentation using the PyBadge code I wrote. One for Carter for helping with some issues that cropped up in the GitHub repos, and just a group hug to everyone for having a great first week working full time, and there's just way too many small things to list.
All right. Thank you. And congratulations again for joining us.
And thanks.
All right. Couple lurkers. And next up is Sedacious.
Hello. I had to find the mute button. I've got a hug to Katney for slogging through the MCP 9600 and learning the hard way that sometimes the hardware is just wrong. And another just general group hug for everyone being awesome. There's so many awesome updates and hug reports going around that everyone's awesome and everything is awesome. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Next up is Summersoft.
I'll reiterate that everything is awesome. And just a group hug this week.
All right. Excellent. We have so many people today, I have to scroll. Next up is Tammy Makes Things, who is text only. And they said hug report to Adafruit for making the feather and NeoPixel feather wing, to all them to make a piece of animated pride jewelry. Excellent. To allow them to make a piece of animated pride jewelry. Nice. All right. And I believe that takes us to Scott.
Hello. First and foremost, I wanted to say thank you to Carter, Deshipu, Summersoft, and Maker Melissa for help with Discord, or help with CircuitPython Discord channel over the weekend. I just got caught up on that, so thank you to those folks. Thank you to Alejandro, PT, and Andon for the Discord Nitro server boost. So I know a little bit more details. I meant to Google it, but I failed to. But basically, Discord has like a subscription that you can do kind of on a yearly basis that gives you yourself some extra superpowers in terms of what you see on Discord. And now they also have server boosting that you can do. So like for one server that you're part of, you can basically kind of like sponsor them for a month. And it's, think of it like a Twitch, what does Twitch call it? Twitch subscription sort of thing, where you have a base subscription you're already paying, and then you have like one free thing that you can give to whatever server you like. So it does, as Phil alluded to, it does. There are different tiers for servers, so the more people who boost the server, the more things we can do, like increase the number of emojis and upload files, bigger files, that sort of thing. I think it's important to support Discord. That's why I'm a Nitro person, because they don't have ads yet, and I'd love it if they stayed that way. So if you have some money and you like Discord a lot, I'd recommend supporting them that way. And then you can support our server through that as well. And then thank you to all of our awesome moderators for the extra vigilance while having the Adafruit Pride version of the logo, of the server logo. A couple, or at least one thing's cropped up with that, and we've had a really good response for it. Lemon from the Python Discord server, which has a similar logo, also gave us a heads up, being like, hey, I saw you change this, beware that we've had some issues. And so have been extra vigilant about that, which has been good. I thanked in my notes, I thanked PT for the animated Pride logo, but it turns out, I think according to Katney or somebody, that the Discord user Aperture did the logo instead. So thank you to Aperture and whomever said it. Not PT. He doesn't deserve credit for it. He deserves credit for pretty much everything else. So, and lastly, I wanted to thank John Reese for the RST to PYI stuff. If you're in the top level of CircuitPython now, you can run make stubs, and it will create Python stubs for all of our native APIs. There's still a few quirks with it and bugs to fix, but the goal is that editors like VS Code and Atom can parse those files and do all of their autocomplete sort of things with them easily. So excited to have that happen. And I was brainstorming last night about editing code from phones. And I think that documentation and that structure that we're going to get out of that is going to be really important for it as well. So thanks to John Reese for that. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is Brent.
Hello.
Hello.
Past week, I just want to give a hug report to everybody for keeping CircuitPython going, and Lamore for helping me with some SMD stenciling work.
All right. Excellent. Carter is lurking, so next up is Charles.
I want to give a hug report to those who are working on who did the work on the MCP 23X17, because that's been helping me with the some of my current projects. Thank you.
All right. Dakota is lurking, so next up is Dan.
Hello, everybody. Short this week, I just want to thank C47D and GitHub for fixing an issue with how we store the sampling rate of a WAV file, and Kevin J. Walters noticed that. And I'd also like to call out Kevin for just being really generally helpful, both in Discord and in the forums, about people who are working in his area of expertise. He's been really responsive to them. So thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Next up is Don K. Unless you are also lurking.
Sorry, yes, I am actually lurking here today, but I will say a group hug to everybody because you do great work. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, Ira Trace.
Just stepping in for the first time here, wanted to thank you all for your help and being such a great community to work with.
Excellent. Glad you could be here. Next up is Jerry.
Yeah, shout out to Adam McCombs for jumping in at the middle of the night to deal with the issue on the moderator issue last week, and dealing with it quickly and efficiently. And also thanks to Adafruit for making the new quad feather wing kits. I really like them. It's nice to have an extra slot for plugging in my feather wings.
It does eliminate the need to stack a doubler on top of a tripler.
That's I've got some pretty complicated towers already, but
right?
Nice.
Exactly. Okay. Excellent. And that is hug reports. So next up is status updates. Status updates is a chance for everyone to sync up on what they've been up to over the last week or since the last meeting, depending on timing. And also to talk about what they're going to be doing over the next week until the next meeting. It's also an opportunity for getting feedback on what you're doing, tips and tricks, any kind of, quick help, and anything that might turn into a longer form discussion, feel free to add to In the Weeds. If at any point in time during the status updates you do have an In the Weeds topic, you can either add it to the notes doc, or you can just type it into the channel and we will get it added and then get to it in order. There are already some In the Weeds topics, so we will have a bit to discuss. So status updates is also round robin, same way. I will start and then go alphabetically through the list. This meeting actually started as status updates with the core CircuitPython team and myself before I actually worked for Adafruit, as an opportunity just to sync up every Monday and make sure that everyone was on the same page for the course of the week, and quickly turned into this amazing community discussion. It's always great to hear what everyone's up to. If you are up to anything, feel free to let us know. We've heard about bathroom remodels and other such things. Doesn't have to be CircuitPython related. We would love to know what it is you're doing, and if you are working on any projects, simple or complicated, it doesn't have to be something crazy for us to want to hear about it. So feel free to let us know what it is you've been working on. I will start. So last week, I got the guide done for the MCP 9600. It includes only Arduino for reasons I will explain. I spent 2 weeks working on the MCP 9600 CircuitPython driver, which ended up in a failure. Thing number one was that the temperature byte is 24 bits and not the 16 I was attempting to read. Issue number two, it was doing this thing where it reports double data. So if you are trying to read two things, it returns the first thing twice and it returns the second thing twice. We fought with this for a long time until Dan and his amazing Google foo found the errata for it, and it turns out that when it fails clock stretching, which was what we thought was the problem, but didn't understand how it could be doing what it was doing, it very specifically says when it fails, that is how it fails. So, hooray. I guess the answer is at least it was not the driver so much as it is, or CircuitPython, as it is the chip. So for now, we're putting aside the MCP 9600 CircuitPython driver, and I guess I can delete the until we sort out the I2C incompatibility with CircuitPython itself, or leave it, I suppose, because the issue is with the chip. It's a hardware failure, and it was apparently updated in more recent versions, but not the version we have. So, totally done with that chip. So I did some forum support last week. There are a few of us that are going to be picking up the CircuitPython Adafruit forum to cover that. And so I got started with that. I also started the blog post wrap-up for PyCon, which has turned out to be more involved than I expected, which I suppose I should have expected. I was there for 9 days, and a lot happened. So I've been trying to get through that. And last week we met with, Scott and I met with the Microsoft interns regarding a VS Code CPX simulator extension they're working on. And we will be available as advisors throughout the rest of that process. They're 2 weeks in and it looks amazing. I think that they're doing some really great work. And I think that us meeting with them really helped out. They were able to get some questions answered about what the goals of CircuitPython are and how that would relate to the types of users that are going to want to use this in VS Code. It sounded like that was something they were struggling a little bit with, was really understanding their audience. And we were able to clarify a number of things for them about what CircuitPython's audience looks like, since there will be some overlap in that sense. So this week, running this meeting, obviously, and then finishing up everything that goes with that. Library Monday, which is today, obviously. I'll be going through PRs and that sort of thing. If you have anything outstanding that you need me for, please ping me directly, either on Discord or via email, or if it's on GitHub, just ping me directly on GitHub. It'll get flagged. If it's been more than 24 to 48 hours since I responded, feel free to ping me. There has been a lot going on, and so I think some things have slipped. So I would appreciate it if you do have outstanding stuff that you need me to take care of. Please let me know. It's not that I am ignoring you. It's that things have slipped in the massive amount of stuff going on. Forum support is a Tuesday, Thursday thing for me, so that I will be doing. My next project is a PyBadge PyGamer general purpose wrapper library. The plan is to, if you're familiar with the Circuit Playground Express library, where it's a library that sort of puts all of the functions of the chip functions of the board rather, into a single place where you can just call them. We're going to be doing the same thing with PyBadge and PyGamer, so that you can have one library that runs all the buttons and accelerometer and the D-pad and or joystick and that sort of thing. And at the moment, the name that I have come up with so far is PyBadger, and that's what I'm calling it for now. So there's that. And then I need to finish up my 2 blog posts, finish up the PyCon blog post, and start and finish the second post that I need to do. But the PyGamer PyBadger library is basically my main project for the week. And that is what I am up to with my status update. So next up is Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay. Last week I finished adding the Orange Pi R12 page to the Orange Pi guide. I added Odroid C2 support to Blinka. I tested the I2S microphone Raspberry Pi guide on the latest distribution. I'm exploring some easier ways to add the I2S microphone to the Raspberry Pi. And I will update the guide if I do find a way. And I started handling some more of the Arduino issues and PRs, as well as doing a little bit of forum support. This week I'm going to finish the Odroid C2 guide. After that, I'll work on adding the Dragon Board 410C to Blinka, and start working on a guide for that. And I'll be working on starting a CircuitPython and Raspberry Pi write-up for something coming up here.
All right.
And that's all I have.
Excellent. Mike is lurking. Mr. Certainly, do I recall that you are also lurking? I believe there was lurking due to background noise. Excellent. Okay, so next up is Sedacious.
So I shipped the NeoPixel U and L connectors that I put together for all the different sizes and types of NeoPixel strips. That should be fun to use, making NeoPixels easier to connect together in chains and nice shapes and whatnot. I finished and shipped the drivers, Arduino, and CircuitPython for the DS3502 I2C potentiometer. It's a really cute little chip that Kattni made the board for. It's super cool, super awesome. It's really, I don't know, I think it's really awesome. Let's see, I also shipped the guide for the LPS 35HW by adding pictures, and I am now working on bring up of the BD3491FS Rev2 or Rev B that adds the EQ. I finally got all the parts I need for it, and we'll be making sure it works and adding stuff to the driver for that. Let's see. I also have the VNCL 4040 Arduino driver. I think that was also a board that Kattni worked on. So I'll be writing the Arduino driver for that. And then the Max 3010X, I believe CircuitPython and Arduino drivers, both. And likely other stuff as well. That's it for me.
Thanks. All right, next up is Summersoft.
Hello again. Okay, so last week for Adabot, I fixed the downloads by language stats compilation. There's no more language called Sprite. I added the new and updated libraries list to the daily report finally. Sorry, Kattni, it took me so long.
It's all good.
For circuitpython.org/libraries updates, I fixed the typos in the script. So the script now runs successfully. However, the GitHub permissions are blocking a direct commit push. So there's that. For Rosy Pi, so I got the main build and upload firmware on demand, and then run the tests framework complete. If you'd like to look at an awesome log sample, that's what it currently looks like. I've got the running test and interaction working, kind of. The raw REPL is nice and I don't know if anybody knows about the raw REPL. So basically, if you hit Control A, you enter a REPL state. It basically just doesn't echo every command that you put in. It's really only for using programmatically, not human interface. But the way that the cpboard.py script that's in the core interacts with the REPL does not work with how I'm doing it. So that's kind of in work. And then lastly, I set up the basis and got it running, the development environment for the accompanying RosiePy GitHub app that will be used for GitHub checks, similar to what Travis does. So next week, continue the good fight, as you said, with CircuitPython.org, libraries updater. I figure we'll either fall back to submitting it as a PR versus a direct commit, or we'll just iron out the permission issues. That's mostly up to everyone that's not me.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
And then for RosiePy, just keep working. I'll probably end up doing a RosiePy side. That was a mouthful. Interaction to work with the raw REPL as opposed to using the CPy board in the core, and then keep working on the GitHub app. That's all that I currently know that I'm doing next week or this week.
All right. Well, thanks very much. And thank you for all that you've been doing. Next up is Tammy Makes Things, who I will read off as they are text only. Write up in code for the Featherwing, or for the Feather and a NeoPixel, is at a link that I believe was posted earlier. Designing a CircuitPython MaxBotix L7 EZ4 sensor for my car to avoid running into the wall when I'm parking at home because I have bad depth perception. And getting my first 3D printer this week, which I'm very excited about. Excellent. Next up is Scott.
Hello. So I've been pretty heads down in general. I was really focused on getting partial screen updating working to speed up display IO a whole bunch, hopefully. So that's super close to being done. I have one issue where I'm leaving some pixels not updated when they should be. So I'll be taking a look at that first thing, well, this week once I've caught up on email and stuff. And then I'll continue kind of like poking at different things that we need for gaming. I'm working on the Celeste code that I've written and want to do some performance evaluation. And somebody just filed an issue about how performance is also slow. So I want to take kind of just a gander to see where we're at in that regard. So I'll probably do that. I have some changes I want to make after this partial updates around synchronizing with frame updates. So I'll probably do that as well. In general, I've been thinking a lot about video out as well, both outputting video from CircuitPython up the USB link, but also to HDMI. So definitely kind of letting that stew in my brain for a while. We'll see when something comes up with that. And then last night I was thinking a bit about our BLE story for the second half of this year. So a few weeks from now, I'll probably take that on. But for now, I had a presentation at Teardown in 2 weeks. So I'm going to try to stay in the gaming headspace for those 2 weeks and getting the Game Boy stuff polished up and actually kind of having a story about games on CircuitPython, both on the Game Boy and on the Gamer and the Pi Badge. So yeah, we'll see more of that come this week, but still pretty heads down.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for running the meeting.
You're welcome. Scrolling back up. Next up is Brent. And maybe Brent stepped away. I will read Brent's notes. So last week, got the ESP32 SPI, got some mock methods. You can now use digital out and PWM out like API methods with any board with an ESP32 attached. Useful for stuff like GPIO expansion, smaller M4s, less GPIOs exposed, use an SP32, twiddling bits, and more. CircuitPython RGB LED released, super high-level RGB LED manager, similar methods with compatibility with pre-existing NeoPixel library, PWM out objects, PCA-based PWM expander, sysfs, PWM out, Blinka, Coral boards, Orange Pi, etc. Early this week, currently working on bringing up physically 2 new boards that we haven't leaked yet, exposing the RGB LED work within Wi-Fi Manager, useful for seeing the status of your HTTP requests on the Airlift, Featherwing, Breakout, etc., and giving our old Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone Black, and DHT guide Blinka code a rework. And next up is Charles.
Well, I'm presently looking at revising my keyboard code to use the new version of the 23.017 library. I don't know whether it's going to have any, the new one's going to have any effect on my code, but I'm going to check it out because I'm getting a few little strange artifacts that may have to do with the changes. So before I post any complaints, I want to make sure I check that out. Then I've been playing around with an idea down at work at the weather center, and I hope I may try to use CircuitPython for that project, but it depends on what the boss says. Anyway, that's all I got, and I just have I guess I'll leave it at that for the time being.
Okay. Thanks, Charles. We have a couple lurkers, I believe, and then that means next up is Dan.
Hello. So I've been working on BLE again this past week. I've implemented BLE Scanner, which was sort of working, but I made it work better. And what happens is it listens for advertising packets from BLE devices. And the code to parse that was originally in C and somewhat inflexible, and now I moved the parsing code into Python, so that simplifies the lower level stuff and makes it possible to do more interesting things in the rest of the library. So the basic idea here is that more and more stuff in BLE.io will be kind of a thin, not very rich layer, and we can do a lot more stuff in Python. That's already been true of other things that I've moved from the C layer to the Python layer. And I'm testing that right now. I've got 2 NRF 52840 boards in the desktop, and it's very confusing which one I'm talking to, of course. And once that's done, I'll move on to Central and BLE HID. So, and at some point we'll have an alpha or a beta that has a library or a version of CircuitPython and matching library, so people can try this out. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Dawn is lurking. Irie Trace, do you have any status updates for us?
Yes, I've been working with the 1306 Feather. There are a number of features of the chip that are not exposed in the library, and I was wondering if anybody could tell me that these things have been tried and not working before I start diving in with I2C and trying to get this all incorporated. In particular, things like scrolling and moving things around to keep from having to upload the full frame buffer every time you want to update anything on the display.
That is definitely display related. Scott, do you have anything on that?
So, for the SSD 1306,
yeah,
I'm actively working on display.io support that does partial screen updating. That's only for display.io, and if you want to try it, let me know. I can give you a build. It mostly works. There's just one niggly bug that I've got to run down. I got really hamstrung thinking about how to incorporate scrolling, so I don't have scrolling support in there yet. Kind of tear enabled support is in that bucket of like would be really nice to have as well. But keeping track of like whether we should actually scroll or not, and then what happens to the coordinate system is not straightforward to me. So I've left that for later. But yeah, for partial screen updates, it's working almost entirely. So if you want to try it, let me know.
I would very much like to try it. We should probably talk about this offline.
Yep, I'm around all day.
All right, thanks.
Excellent. Thank
And I
you.
guess the other thing is I'm working on a strange project which is using the BNN05. We have some virtual reality applications which, for a variety of reasons, we have to have a tethered hand controller, and these are typically Bluetooth. So I'm actually using a Itsy Bitsy and the BNN05 to build a replacement for the VR hand controller.
Wow. All right. Excellent.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, welcome to the meeting. And then we come to Jerry.
Yeah, spent a bunch of time playing with my new airlift feather wings that came in this week. They're lots of fun, plugging them into all sorts of things. One place I found that really works nicely is adding one onto my Grand Central. So that really becomes a great test platform because it's got all those pins and now it has Wi-Fi. And just in general, the whole SPI Wi-Fi coprocessor is really working out well, I think, and really excited to see all the developments that have occurred. Supporting all the work Brent's done and all the uses it's getting, the Pi portal and all that stuff. So it's really taken off. It's nice to see. And I got to find time to get back to all the things I want to be working on: BLE, LoRa, Display IO projects that have been sitting around waiting for some attention. And hopefully I'll have a lot more time in a few weeks.
All right. Well, we'll still be here.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. And that was status updates. Thank you, everyone. So next up is In the Weeds. In the Weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions of any topics, either topics that were covered in status updates or stuff that is totally unrelated. We have 2 topics posted, one from Jerry and one from Maker Melissa. So we will start with Jerry, and I will turn that over to you.
Okay, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I know it's come up before, and I spent a fair amount of time this week working with somebody on the support for the particle argon and the AT control library, and I'm just curious if there's been any real thought, into its future. Are we going to keep supporting it at all? Is it just going to, go away? Should it move to, community support and be dropped? Because, it's just, we're just curious what people are thinking about it. And, that's the first piece of it. So I just didn't know if there's been any thought or decision made about where to go with that.
In our discussion about it, we sort of decided to just leave it as it is for now.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what that means for the future of it, but that was our decision, was just to sort of leave it in place. There, I think, are people using it. If anyone wants to update it, they can, obviously. But go ahead.
Yeah, that brings up the next. If it's going to stay as it is, then I think there are some issues with it that could be addressed. One is, there are a lot of features that might be able to be added to it to make it more capable, like the SPI interface, things that just never got added. So that might be just, again, if anybody can do that. But yeah, okay. And then the other thing is that the guide, I think, right now there's this one coprocessor guide that is really kind of a mishmash of dealing with the AT control and ESP32 SPI. And I do think it would be nice to break those apart or hide the AT control one away or something, because there, at least unless I'm missing it, there's no dedicated guide to using the ESP32 SPI. It's sort of partially in there, and then you can go to the airlift guide, which is great. In fact, maybe that's all we really need is the airlift guide with maybe a paragraph saying, if you're using a non-airlift or a that all you have to do really is change the pinouts.
So I think the answer to that.
But
go ahead.
that I don't think describes how to update the firmware, which is in this guide. But it's so I think some work could be done there. I don't know if anybody is looking at doing that or.
Not at the moment. I think the answer to that is to potentially deprecate that guide, the AT control guide, and so in that by that I mean we don't like to remove guides.
Right.
Instead, we put a notice at the top that says, "Hey, check out this other guide."
Okay, that'd be great. And I think all another guide really needs is a section or copy of the section that says how to update the Nina firmware on an ESP32. Somewhere in one of the other guides would be nice, so that no one has to look at the AT control guide if they don't want to, because I think it's confusing.
Can you?
I agree, Jerry. Let me know, and I might add a section about updating Nina firmware, because it will vary between, like, if you're doing it with a Pi portal or if you want to use an actual, like, FTDI cable to flash through, like, ESP Spy, like ESP tool rather, or you want to use mini ESP tool. So it'll be more in depth, but we could add a page. I'm not sure where I would add it right now, but we could definitely add a page.
Okay, great. I think that'd be really, really nice.
Brent, would you be able to handle deprecating the AT control guide as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that would be fantastic. All right, so I guess that at least puts together where to.
And if anybody asks, I think an airlift feather wing on top of a feather M4 is a wonderful replacement for the particle argon. It really works nicely.
That's good to know, because I know we have actually gotten what we keep getting is questions about CircuitPython support for the Argon in terms of like wanting that functionality, and being able to provide a solution for that is a good thing. Yep. Excellent. Thank you very much. So next up is Maker Melissa, and I will let you take it away.
Okay, so I was just kind of wondering, now that CircuitPython 1 stable is out, what is the plan for moving forward with the rest of the displays to display IO?
By rest of displays, you mean the like non-16-bit colored?
Yes, like the monochrome ones and the e-ink displays.
Right. I would like to add that support, but I don't have any concrete plans on when that's going to happen. Okay. It's something that maybe you and I should just chat about, because I think, right, like the general idea is that we need to figure out like if it's not MIPI commands, we've got to figure out if we want to bodge the other command structure that these chips take into display itself, or maybe we have a corresponding monochrome display or some other sort of display. Mm-hmm. And then we also need to sort out like basically pixel shaders negotiation of like what the final color is, or color depth is. So like if you load, like a 16-bit color BMP and then you want to display it on a single 1-bit display, how does it do that translation?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And then the question is, like, do we want to be able to call out to a Python function potentially? And does that function call include like pixel coordinates? Because if you had pixel coordinates, you could do dithering, which would be really cool. E-ink gets tricky because I think of the red, so it's basically 3 color displays, but it's really 2 1-bit displays in my mind, like black and nothing and red and nothing. And they're like, in fact, they're actually structured that way in memory as well. So like, that's kind of why if you look in the display code, there's like, in theory, there could be multiple displays the groups are being output to. So that's another thing to think about, is like, what if an e-ink display is really just treated like 2, and then you have to create like parallel structures of like objects that have different pixel shaders, one for red, one for black. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions kind of that my brain hasn't solved yet, and you've done a lot more work on that stuff than I have as well. So
okay. I did have an idea regarding the scrolling though, and coordinates. You could think of it kind of as like a big page, maybe even just initialize the display with a larger surface than it actually has. And then you would write to it like a canvas kind of thing, and then you can kind of scroll that canvas around on the screen like a window.
Yeah, so that is an interesting thing to think about as well, because the chips tend to have a fixed amount of display RAM, but the display that's hooked up to it actually just is hooked up to a piece of that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of scrolling functionality built into some of the displays. Not all of them have it, but the ones.
Right. I think even some of them that don't say they have it do actually have it.
Right, it'll show the data sheet.
And then the other tricky thing is that scrolling is only one dimension as well. And
that's true. On some of them it is.
Yeah, and that can actually make it less interesting. Like the PyBadge's terminal I'd love to use scrolling for it, but it's the opposite direction, right? It's like the wrong direction, which is one of the reasons I chose not to support it. But then again, if we wanted to do like a side-scrolling game, left to right is the orientation of the displays on these devices, and they would obviously make it possible and faster and stuff. So
okay,
I don't know. It's yeah, it's really hard. I think essentially like with this new partial updating stuff, every tile grid's producing like, hey, this is where I am. So all tile grids know its absolute screen position. You could theoretically have a piece of or like a pass over all of those objects asking if their position is like only switched in one direction, and then you could track basically how many pixels you think are scrolling in a particular direction and do that. And basically invert all your rectangles. But like the problem with doing complicated things for rectangle tracking is you quickly burn up the cycles that you would just spend transmitting everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not clear to me how to do it. Scrolling, I think in particular, is hard. I think that the monochrome display support is more interesting because then we would have a consistent API and it would be easy to go between things. But there is some assumptions within the code that needs to be hammered out to do that. And
yeah.
Lots of brain dumping and yeah, if you want to take that on, we should that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Like once I land these partial display stuff, like that code shouldn't churn very much. The partial display stuff hasn't changed. It doesn't change any APIs. It only also introduces what I'm calling flipping. So like basically being able to rotate sprites. So
okay.
And the reason I did that is because every time I work on this stuff, I get lost in the weeds of doing rotations of rectangles, which is like really not simple for me to think of. And so like when I was redoing it for the change from pixels to areas, I decided to do the flipping on a sprite by sprite basis as well.
Okay.
Basically, you have rotation at 2 points. You have it for the display itself, and then you have it for each individual tile grid. Groups cannot be rotated. They can only be scaled and shifted, which makes that math easier.
Okay.
But if you're basically doing rotations at the top and the bottom. And like, I also wanted to make a guarantee that bitmaps are always traversed in row order. So like the lowest level code in tile grid that fills those areas out in the buffer, it always runs in row associative. Which means that like bitmap sources can then optimize for that case. Which they basically are already. And in particular, like loading a bitmap off of disk is row associative, and it's very slow if you don't do it the other way. So yeah, lots to consider. But yeah, we should support everything. It's just different degrees of difficulty.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can come up with a plan with it.
Okay.
All right. Sounds great. Next up, we have something from Charles. If you want to take it away.
You don't have to worry about that one because Summersoft pointed me to something that might be a solution to my problems.
Okay.
Perfect.
That one's taken care of already. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
All right. And we don't have any more topics as far as I can tell, so I will go ahead and wrap up. Take a time code. All right. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for June 10th, 2019. I want to thank everyone who participated. I want to welcome our new people who are participating. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are listening to this later, and want to join us, check out our Discord server at adafru.it/discord and join us in the CircuitPython channel. We are also there all week. So if you are in a situation where you have any questions or just want to say hi, feel free to come by. Again, this will be available on YouTube and also on many podcast services. I guess thank you everyone again for participating. So we will see you all next week. Thanks everyone.